friend. Welcome to Extraordinary Strides, the podcast that celebrates the bold, the brave, and the audacious. I'm your host, Coach Christine, and I'm here to guide you as we turn ordinary runners into extraordinary achievers. Because whether you're tackling your first mile or chasing your fastest marathon, this is your space to learn, grow, and be inspired by stories of transformation. Now, today's episode is jam-packed. We're going to talk a lot about audacity. We're going to meet with Shelly and how she chased the extraordinary this past year. And I'm hoping that all of you are feeling that call to maybe reflect a little bit on your 2024, reset, and of course, refocus. So as you reflect on 2024, I thought it was a great opportunity for us to talk about big, audacious goals. You've heard me say that probably several times this past year. And hopefully at some point, you've been called to look as to where you are at with your own audacious goals. And so let's talk a little bit about it. Audacious goals, being wild, rebellious, and maybe even defiant. It's those dreams that push us beyond what we thought possible. But I really want us to know, what does audacious goals mean? What does it truly mean? I'm asking you to defy the ordinary. I feel like I should break into song a la Wicked a little bit there. But what does it truly mean to defy the ordinary and chase after something extraordinary? Because when we hear about the word audacious, I think of boldness, I think of courage, I think about a little bit of rebellion. And absolutely, we should think of those things because being audacious is not about playing it safe. It's about shaking the foundation of comfort and questioning our limitations and saying to the world, and sometimes just to ourselves, watch me be my best self. So audacious goals demand a certain defiance, not against others, but against the part of ourselves that whispers, stay in your lane. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because how often have you decided not to pursue something because you felt like maybe it was just a little too much out of your comfort zone, it was a little too big, and you felt like it was best to just stay in your own little comfort zone, your lane of what you knew was safe? Of course, that part of us craves the safety of the ordinary, the routine, the unchallenged. But audacious goals are acts of rebellion against excuses and procrastination and the temptation to settle. Their refusal to let good enough be the best we aspire to. Think about it this way. The very essence of running mirrors this defiance, because why do we run? For some, it's just joy of movement. For others, it's the chase, chasing down that elusive personal best, chasing freedom, chasing dreams. Every run, every mile, every blistered toe and aching muscle, and I have a few of those myself right now, is a declaration, I will not stay where I am. And that, my friends, is audacity. So audacity is built on small acts of defiance. Audacious goals are not about reckless leaps. Don't get me wrong. They're about deliberate steps forward. It's running toward your dreams. It's waking up early when the bed is warm and the world is still dark. It's lacing up your shoes when no one is watching. There's no medal at the end of your training run. It's choosing progress over perfection. And these small, seemingly rebellious choices against that ordinary, against those excuses, build a momentum that pushes us from ordinary to the extraordinary. When you say, I want to run a marathon, or I want to run a 5K, or I want to deadlift a PR, I want to be stronger than I was yesterday, well, you're just not setting a goal. You're rewriting the script. You're declaring that you won't accept excuses. No time? Well, you'll find it. No energy? You'll summon it. Fear of failure? You will face it. That, my friend, is audacity. It's not just a goal. It's truly a way of life. And excuses, the chains of the ordinary, well, they're seductive. They wrap themselves around us, convincing us that ordinary is safer. They say you're too busy, you're too old, you're too tired, too inexperienced. But audacious goals don't just ignore excuses. They crush them. They say you can be tired and still take one more step. You can be scared and still move forward. You can be busy, but this goal matters enough to make room. Running is an act of audacity in itself. I'm emotional talking about this because truly, that's why we love this sport so very much. That's why we continue to lace up, right? Every step is a rebellion against inertia, against stagnation, against the easy choice to stand still. It's an unapologetic claim that you are made for more than just existing. You're here to thrive, to conquer, and to transform. Now, let's talk about ordinary days versus extraordinary lives, because here's the thing about the ordinary. It will always feel safe, but it will never truly feel fulfilling. Extraordinary isn't found in the predictable patterns of ordinary days. It's found on the edge of discomfort. It's in the extra mile, the unexpected moment of courage, the decision to rise one more time when you've already fallen 100 times before. Because in life, just like in running, there's always a finish line waiting for each of us. But what makes that finish line extraordinary is the story you write getting there. The training runs in the rain, the courage to sign up for a race that scares you, the audacity to say, I'm not ready yet, but I will be. Sit on that for a second, because so often we make decisions today that will impact us in 6 months, a year, 5 years, because we don't feel ready. But you become ready along the pathway, because every stride forward turns you into the kind of person who doesn't just dream of extraordinary, you create it. So let's talk more about the definition of audacity. Audacity is about breaking free. It's about refusing to let fear define your boundaries. And it's about embracing the messiness, the sweat. And hey, my friend, it's about embracing those failures and seeing them as part of your transformation. Think of the most extraordinary people you admire, not just runners, but in life. You have them? Can you see them in your mind? They're not extraordinary because they had an easy path. You don't look up to them because they had it handed to them. They're extraordinary because they defied the pull of ordinary. They chose to try when it was hard. They chose to keep going when it hurt. They chose to rise again when they stumbled. So what is your audacious goal? Is it running the marathon? Is this the year 2025 you sign up for that race that you've been eyeing? Is it facing a fear that's held you back for years? Is it simply saying, I deserve better, and taking the first step toward it? Whatever it is, let me remind you, ordinary is safe, but audacious, that will make you feel alive. Running, whether it's a mile or a marathon, teaches us that growth lives outside our comfort zone, and it's not about how fast you go, my friend. It's about the courage to start and the determination and resiliency to finish. So be rebellious, be defiant. In 2025, I want you to be audacious. And when you do, you'll find that the finish line doesn't just mark the end of a journey, it marks the beginning of an extraordinary life. And I want you to know that we here at the Stride Collective, the community, are here to support you every single step of the way. So please do join in, if you haven't already, the private Facebook group for the podcast listeners just like you. You'll find it's uplifting, supportive, and people are taking their extraordinary strides towards their big, audacious goals. Now it's time, my friend. We're going to dive into Shelly Rose's story. She's no stranger to the podcast here, and I cannot wait to have her come back in and tell us all about how she trained towards her first half marathon. So without further ado, let's welcome in Shelly Rose. Shelly, welcome back. How are you doing, friend?
Hello, I am great.
Yay. We're so excited to catch up because I feel like it's been a while. I want you to go ahead, if you don't mind telling us in your words, maybe you can remind folks or let new folks that are joining in a little bit about how this whole journey got started with you.
So I decided to commit to doing the half marathon after I finished my first 10K. It was after, some scary medical stuff, and I signed up for a race after I got good news from the doctor, a 10K before. I was actually supposed to do the one I'd planned on. A friend talked me into it. And as soon as I saw those half marathon folks cross their finish line after I'd done my 10K, I knew that was just going to be my next step. And I committed to it right then and there.
So wait, what race was this? I actually don't even know if I know which race you saw the half marathoners at. Was it OUC?
It was the Best Damn race.
Okay, so at BDR, you process, which is generally held, I think, in March here in Orlando. So you crush your 10K, you've gotten good news, and in true runner fashion, you're like, I just run all the miles.
Exactly.
Perfect. Was there any fear along the way of committing to that? Or did you feel like I just have to give this a try?
There was definitely fear, but I was, when I said that, I had that one friend that talks me into everything with me, and she convinced me that if I can do a 10K, I can do a half, no problem. And just to let her know as soon as I'm ready for a marathon, because I can totally do that too.
Let's come back to that because that is going to be a question that I want to know as well. Okay, there's so much to discuss, but since we last caught up, or tell us a little bit about how your training started to kind of go, like what happened along the way with your training as we led up to OUC.
So I felt like I was pretty strong all the way through training. I didn't skip any runs. I did all the strength, twice a week, and did the things I was supposed to do, stuck to the plan because I'm a planner. I like plans. Until of course I started having some pain, and then I hurt myself a couple times from my own stupidity, and that got a little rough, and we had to pull back some, but modified the plan, stuck to the new modified plan, and got through it.
Okay, so for friends that aren't necessarily aware, maybe they haven't tackled, usually there is not a perfect training cycle. They're usually very rare to have like the perfect training cycle where there's no setbacks or challenges or life just comes up. So it's okay to say officially that you had a bit of discomfort pain. We went and got that checked out. You were cleared for us to proceed. So at that point, again, she's very much, Shelly, hopefully it's okay to say this. I think you're kind of structure rule based. So as long as you have that structure and rule based, so hearing from the doctor that you're cleared, getting set up with PT, continuing to move forward, like everything felt, from my perspective, it looked like you really thrive in that. Knowing that you're okay to continue pushing, it felt like that was really good for you to continue moving forward. Is that kind of accurate for you?
Absolutely. I was very nervous and very scared going to the doctor because I was sure that they were going to bench me and be like, you can just forget about this plan you have in place and you're just going to be resting forever. And so I like that structure, but I also didn't want to go to the doctor and have him tell me that, because then I feel like if I have this rule, I have to follow it. So I really just did not want to go, and I was so scared to go, but I went. He encouraged me to go, and I did go, and he didn't say that. He said I could keep running, and set me up for PT. And I need that, like, what am I supposed to do kind of rule. Yes, that is definitely my personality.
Okay, I do want to go ahead and make a note here, folks, because one thing that I want you all to know is that not all doctors are created equal. And one of the things that we have discovered along the way, or that we kind of discovered together in this particular, is that you saw a couple of other docs that weren't necessarily as detailed or thorough, which is okay because we understand that that's kind of, they were more of an emergent situation. So Shelly got to see a sports ortho, and that's a world of difference. So I am going to definitely encourage you all, wherever you're at, to please do your due diligence. I mean, here in Central Florida, like I have resources, but everywhere else, do your due diligence, talk with your other runners. I love it to be a doctor who's aware that running is a jam of yours. It's a priority, because other doctors may not necessarily feel the need to get you out running as quickly as possible, where I feel like this doctor got you, like he like understood this was a priority of yours and wanted you to move forward as quickly as possible so you could get back to running.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate? Okay.
Totally. The first person I saw when I first started having like a little bit of pain, when I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? He was like, well, just take a break. I was like, well, what if it doesn't stop after like a week or two? And he was like, well, maybe you should find another sport. And I'm like, well, that's not an option. So maybe not you. So that was uncomfortable and awful. But the most recent ortho that I saw, the actual one who does sports and was recommended, not at a urgent care kind of walk-in clinic, he immediately walked in. He was like, you're a runner. And I was like, yes. He goes, this is what I see a lot with women runners. And he just knew everything I was going to say, everything I was going to ask. I didn't even have to ask really hardly any questions, because he just knew what I was thinking, what was coming out of my mouth, and what to do next. And the PT folks that I worked with, they were so encouraging, because every time they talked to each other, and they knew I had a race coming up. They'd be like, you're getting excited, your race is coming. And, so we worked together to get there. And it was a fabulous experience because of that.
Awesome. I love to hear that. I had a very similar situation when I first started running. And basically it comes down to our aerobic capacity leaps and bounds makes a lot of improvement when we first start running very quickly. So we feel good. We feel like we can do more. We can absolutely just keep moving and grooving. But our musculoskeletal system takes a little bit more time to join the official party. Doesn't know why. It's not, watching Netflix instead of doing all these miles. So I'm glad to hear that this is something that you're feeling good with. And of course, you had a great team in place. Let's talk more about this training. So we get back to training, or we really didn't have that much of a pause. It was a very brief pause because you moved so quickly and so diligently and getting in with the right doctors. But with your training, would you say there was some tougher runs? And if so, what exactly made them tougher?
There were several tough ones. Not all of them were rainbows and unicorns. That would be nice, though. I like rainbows and unicorns. Some of them were definitely tougher. Like hill repeats, I was like, this is going to be the death of me. But I always felt so strong when I finished them. Like I was like Superwoman, that I pushed through those hill repeats because I knew I was going to feel so good when I was done. And I could be like, I did this hill repeat. Look at me. And of course, every time we passed the pedestrian bridge overpass that I used for it, I would point it out to people. That's where I run my hill repeat. And they're like, what? I was like, just never mind, keep driving. So that was one of the more particularly challenging ones. And there was one other one that it was really hot, and I think it was only like 6 miles, and I was fighting for my life to finish that run. And I think there were strides at the end of it that I was like, no, thank you. Because I just hit a wall. And I remember thinking, like, if I can't even run 6 miles and then end with strides, how am I ever going to do a half? Like, it's double this. What is happening?
Yeah.
But yeah, those were probably the hardest ones.
Okay, well, then we talked about some of the ones that were a little tougher, challenging. What did you do to talk yourself through it afterwards? Like specifically that 6 miler one, like how did you reel it back? Because I think sometimes we get that paranoia in our brain that starts to kind of take over that imagination and use it goes for like a little nefarious kind of like, you can't do this, just pull out. How did you talk yourself through it?
I looked at like how much longer I had until the actual race. I'm like, well, I've got a lot of time. There is a plan, and the plan is that this is where I am right now, and I can get better. And I started thinking through like, well, why was it hard today? And I started looking at some of the things like environmental, and looking at the weather. And I had a lot of runs, like long runs that were like insanely humid, like the worst humidity all week. And it's like, ta-da, it's today. And then there were some times when I just knew I wasn't eating the way I should be and not fueling very well and not doing what I needed to do. So I just kind of, at the end of it, I just broke down what went wrong, and figured out what was my part, what was, Mother Nature's fault, and moved on to just try to figure out, and talk through it. I talked through it with my wife, who had no information, to just be like, it'll be fine next time, because she doesn't know. And I talked through it with you, and, I just, hyped myself up that it was going to be good. The next one will be fine.
Okay. So logic and kind of giving ourselves a little bit of space to pull back from it. I think that's really important. And I love how you use it as almost like, okay, well, what can I fix so it doesn't feel maybe as tough? That humidity, unless if we are getting ready to move, we're going to get stuck with it one way or the other. But you did phenomenal. You got through those tougher periods, both setback with having a bit of some downtime, getting into those training runs that maybe were a little bit tougher. Let's talk about sunshine and unicorns. Was there somewhere in this training process that was a breakthrough, a little like beam of light with sparkles in it that said, this is it. You can do this. I can totally do this.
Yeah, there was 2 times that I really felt like I've got this, no problem. One was the first, when we got to the point where it was the longest run I'd ever done, which was this 9-mile run. And because I'd done 8 training for the 10K up before that. So 9 was going to be the longest. And I was actually in Dunedin, visiting my mother-in-law, helping with a yard sale. That was horrible. That did not go well. But I got up super, super early before the yard sale that day and went on this 9-mile run and it felt really good. Like the run, I felt like I could do it. I felt like I had control. I never felt like I was, losing it, or I should just go ahead and turn around early. And I just it felt like a really good run. And it was the first run after I'd seen the ortho who gave me told me I should take ibuprofen when my leg hurt while we were waiting for PT and things. And so it was the first longer run that I'd had that was completely pain-free. So I was like, it was rainbows and unicorns for that whole run. It was just amazing. And it was, the longest I'd ever run. New place. So that was kind of fun to see the sights and such. And then there was the last long run that we did as a group. It was the 12-mile long run. And it felt easier than I expected it to when we were going at a pace faster than I usually do my long runs. And I wasn't dying. And I didn't feel like I was going to fall apart and the wheels were going to come off, and I just knew with each one of those, I was like, see, I can do this. It is possible. Because if I can do this, I can go a few more miles.
I love how vastly different they are, because in the 9-mile conditions, it's in a new area. You really aren't as familiar with that specific trail. It was still hot and humid. Maybe I would assume too, there was probably not like the optimal sleep since you're not necessarily in your own home and your own like usual structure. And then the 12-miler being at home, you were able to control the instances. We were blessed with like absolutely
perfect
for us Floridians. Yeah, it was perfect running weather. It was a little chilly actually for us Floridians, but that's okay. It was perfect once we got into our miles. I love how I think both of those really do show that regardless of what the actual day might bring, that you were prepared to tackle it. So we have our last 12-miler before the half marathon. Tell me what you're thinking and maybe some of your preparations as we start to get to actual race week, because we get into Taper Town and people tend to get a little bit, there's a lot of anxiety and doubt in that time frame, but I feel like you felt kind of locked in at that point.
Yeah, that 12-mile run was so good. It kind of carried me, so I'm so glad that run went well. So it really kind of carried me through. I started to get a little of the crazies, thinking like, what am I doing? Especially because the next week that we pulled back pretty significantly on mileage, and it was a little harder than I felt like than the 12-mile. I think the weather was different. Which the weather is just the worst, that it can change everything. So I was starting to get a little bit dowdy, and I'm like, no, it's going to be good. That 12-mile was perfect, and there were people there, and there's going to be people at the race, and you're not doing it by yourself. So you'll have that energy you had for that 12-mile. So I just kind of talked myself through it and bought a giant book to keep myself distracted so that I wasn't just like sitting. Like I bought an 800-page book because I knew I wouldn't be able to finish it before the race. So that I would always have like, okay, I'm in my brain, I need something else to do.
So smart. Okay, so keeping our mind occupied. I'm hearing a lot of reframing to kind of help you through all of those little doubtful periods. And then again, reminding ourselves of the things that did go right. Let's talk a little bit about your community and support, because I feel like you already have in place a very incredible community and support system, but tell us a little bit more about how maybe that played out as you're going through training, and specifically in Taper. Are you having more social time during that time to also get you through some of the times that would have been busier? You're very busy with your church, anything like that that's kind of playing in for your Taper Town?
Well, I mean, I had a lot of obligations the last couple of weeks leading up to the run, just because of some things going on with church because of the position I'm in there. So I was distracted. I wouldn't say it was like fun and exciting things. It's like, obligation things like specific meetings for boards and, search committees and all sorts of fun committees and stuff. So I had things to do. But of course, every time I'd get on a meeting, like, when's your run? Is it coming? Is it coming soon? Are you ready? Are you excited? And what was really great that I think I have that I didn't realize that other people didn't have as much support as I do is my wife has been super supportive the whole time. She like plans our life around my running. And so Saturday mornings, she knows it's just my time and not to expect to deal with me until maybe she wants to get up and have lunch somewhere. And it's my time, and she knows that. And then she knows the day before a long run, that dinner will probably not be exciting. It will be boring. Okay. It will be something that will not upset my stomach. And she's okay with that. And she would either bring herself something home or decide to have salmon and a baked potato with me.
We love that. So sweet.
I just have a really good group of people that I could, that asked me how things were going and encouraged me. But then my wife was just all in on the plan. and supported it.
So I want to talk a little bit about like what are some key takeaways from taper that you would suggest to somebody else that maybe is hitting peak mileage and they're thinking, okay, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little anxious. What do you feel like you did really right? Sounds like having your mind occupied, leaning into your support system. What about fueling and hydration? Anything else in terms of like the actual physiological aspect of it?
I really focused my energy on making sure that I was hydrated, and I was like, I even put, I counted my ounces really well and actually put them down, I think, in this one app that I use just to make sure that I did it. Kind of focused that energy I would have of hyping myself up for a run onto food and water intake. And that was probably a big part of it. And the time that I felt like I should have been out running or doing something else, maybe cross training, I was spending like making sure I was doing stretches they prescribed for me at PT and showing up to my PT appointments and just really kind of listening to what I needed. I felt like I made rest kind of a requirement, and I stopped kind of feeling bad about like, I'm just going to lay on the couch because that's what I want to do right now. And it's like, yes, I'm allowed to lay on the couch right now because I'm saving it. I'm saving it for race day.
Okay. And I think that's brilliant. I love how you're saying it wasn't that you weren't necessarily doing the same physicality. I mean, you weren't doing the same kind of training, but your training got shifted into really supporting you for race day.
Right.
That's fantastic. I think there's a lot. That's a big lesson to learn. I probably could still refresh that lesson a couple times myself personally. Okay, let's lead us up into race the night before. We know that you're having a kind of a boring dinner. You will go into bed. Tell us about maybe laying out your clothes, flat runner, and then getting up the next morning, getting to race. Let's lead us into how OUC went from that perspective.
I already knew what I was going to wear like forever ago, and I'd already had it planned. But I was like, I'm going to post a flat runner picture because I don't do that very often, but I'm like, I'm doing it. So
yeah.
I actually was like, okay, tonight before it's the official time for this flat runner. And I got all my stuff out and I had it, all nice and organized and ready to go, and set my alarm and did all the things. I did not go to bed as early as I wanted to because I just couldn't sleep. I did eventually fall asleep, and I slept hard. When I woke up, I was like, oh no, I think I died for a little while. I was and when I woke
up, yeah.
I'm awake. Got up super early the morning of, and yeah. So
okay. And then you already had your parking scoped out. You had picked up your bib, all of these things. Actually, we should take it back a little bit to Expo and bib pickup. What do you feel you did well with Expo and bib pickup versus what you wish you would have done?
So I went the first day because I wanted to just get it done. So I didn't have any stress, leading up to it. In case something happened, I planned to go on the Thursday instead of the Friday. And it was I'm so used to going to Track Shack and getting my stuff. It just feels like whatever. I was so nervous going to the plaza live to pick up my stuff because I was like, ooh, I'm supposed to be here, but I feel like I'm not somehow. And normally, and this was like the first year that they'd really done it this way also. So I was like, I was worried everything was going to be disorganized and messy because new things tend to be that way. But I got down there and got my stuff. And as I'm walking back to get my shirt from the back, I see Wesh 2 has a table, and that's usually the news that I watch when I watch the news. I really only watch the news for the weather. Because I listen to NPR, so I get like other news.
Yeah, and you're a runner, so you want to know what the weather's going to be.
Because it impacts my life so dramatically. So I have I feel like an old lady who has an obsession with the weather. Anyway, so I'm passing this table and I see Eric Burris, and he's my favorite weather guy of all weather guys. And which is also a weird thing to have, is a favorite weather person.
He's my favorite weather person too. I love doing coffee with Eric. Friends, that sounds like I actually know him. I do not know him. He just does a live on his Facebook, and he just kind of answers questions about the weather while he drinks a sip of coffee. He's just very friendly. He feels like somebody you could strike a conversation with.
Exactly. So I see the table. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even go over there. And as I'm walking by, he's like, hi. So I like,
you fangirled.
There was stuff on the table and whatever. And he was like, oh, you should make a sign so that your friends can cheer you on. I was like, my wife already made a sign and she might be mad if I give her a different one that I made because she's never made a sign before. And he was just kind of like, okay. And I walked away and I wanted to get a picture with him because I loved him, and I didn't because I was too shy, even though he had started talking to me first. That should have been a clip. But I was like, I can't. I'd be a weirdo to be like, can I have a picture with this guy? And I felt weird because I didn't know the person next to him because I don't watch the regular part of the news, and they were probably like some anchor. I still don't know who it is. She's blonde. So I was like, and I didn't
that narrows it down.
Just Eric. Because I don't want to be rude because I'm not mean. Anyway,
okay.
So yeah. So then I was like, just go get your shirt, Shelly. So I walked back, got my shirt, and I promptly left.
Okay. So the one lesson takeaway, friends, is that if you do have an expo for your race, because some of them are varying, and our OUC is a bit smaller race and usually does not have an expo, but take the pictures and take a little bit of extra time. Don't spend too much time there. That's a big thing that I have with folks. Don't spend like the entire day, but just a little bit of time and take those pictures, make those memories, because this is going to be your first expo that you get to experience, and they'll always be a little different moving forward, but good. So a little lesson learned, and a shout out to Eric Burris. Maybe we can get a photo in the future at some other event. I don't know how we'll make that happen one way or the other. Let's take us back to race day. So again, you're a planner. I know that we had already talked, we had already planned, like you had your race day parking already pre-planned and paid for. You got up early, you got downtown. Tell us how things are going there.
I left the house at least 10 minutes late than I planned because I was, this is too much information. I was like, I'm going to the bathroom. It's going to happen.
No, this is really good conversation. Yeah.
Well, partially for, application of Vaseline purposes and all the things. Yeah. I want to carry a bottle of Vaseline with me to the porta potties. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. So I ended up being delayed by 10 minutes, and it was not a fruitful 10 minutes, in case you're wondering. So we get down there, and while we have reserved parking, the line to get into the parking lot was awful. So I was driving because I don't like the way my wife drives my car, and she has a big truck, and it's hard to park that Jeep in a parking garage because it's big. So we took my car, and I'm sitting in this line, like freaking out that I'm going to miss the start of the race. So we finally fire drill it, and I get out of the car. She runs around to the driver's seat, and I run over to the porta potties one more time. And I ran into one of the girls from the Badass Lady Gang, which was pretty cool, which calmed me down a little bit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine. She isn't even over the race stuff yet. It's fine. She's done this a lot of times. I'm cool. We find the porta potties, and, one last ditch attempt, no go. And now I'm like, it's like 5 till. I still have my bag that I need to go to bag check. And thank God you were there, because you were like, I'll just take the bag. I'm sure you were like, she's freaking out, just take the bag. So
I think, a little disconcerting because there was such a long line for bag drop off, and you wanted to get into your corral. And that makes a lot of sense, to get into our corrals and kind of feel comfortable with it. But honestly, you really did do everything right. It just is that race mornings are always going to feel a little bit discombobulated, a little more hectic because there is so much around it. So we have a race day strategy. What do you think about your race day strategy at this point when you're getting into your corral? You see maybe where the pace groups are. What are you thinking at this point?
Honestly, I was panicking a little because I felt like I didn't get to warm up as much as I'd planned. But I was like, it's fine. I have a lot of miles. I'll warm up during that. It'll happen. And I walked pretty furiously from the to the porta potty from the car parking lot. So I'm like, I'm probably fine. It's fine. I actually didn't really notice any of the pace groups because I was so in my own zone, and trying not to get kicked by the other people in the corral that are swinging their legs around and taking photos with their friends and whatever.
Yeah.
Just trying to stay out of it. So yeah. And then luckily my wife gets to where I'm at, finds me right before it starts. So I get to see her, which is nice because I was worried she was still sitting in that line. But the strategy we have, I looked at it like 90 times during the week just to make sure I remembered what it was, kind of a slower bit of a start and then speeding up throughout. The first 5 miles are a little, just getting in a groove, and I was like, I can do that. I'm just going to stick to, to be honest, when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm going to be on the higher side of this the entire time. There's no way I'm going to be anywhere near the lower side of this pace range at any point in time. Like, I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to finish it, and I don't care how long it takes me. So that's the strategy, is I'm going to stay on the upper end of the pace range the whole race is the plan. However, that is not how it played out.
I mean, it did. Time out. Yeah. Well, no, not really. It didn't play out that way, but you did stick to the strategy. You stayed to the range for the record. And so there was a bit of a pace range for all of the progression strategy runs. So it's kind of broken up into 3 different sections. So allowing for a slower start, which is very hard for runners. And I think you did a beautiful job. And we've talked about it before. That's not necessarily something that you felt adept at, but you've been working at it and you did a gorgeous job of starting off conservatively. So in this process, because we did have such a strong 12-mile run, I felt very confident that while you had a primary goal of finishing, that there was likely a time goal that we could attach to it. So we talked about it. We agreed that you'd give it a try. And I'm hearing that 90 times you told yourself that probably wasn't going to be the case. But race day does present, and we're again having one of these beautiful Florida days for our time of year. So it feels to me going into it's a high likelihood, but again, so you start moving, tell me where you're going through this race. What's going through your mind? What are your favorite takeaways as you're rocking and rolling through your paces?
You go through the starting and you're like, you're fine. Everything's great. And then suddenly we turn, so the first turn onto the first actual street. That's not just this. Because the start on this race is like the length of the entire street, because there's just so darn many people. So I felt like when I took the first turn off of that first street, I felt like I was actually officially in the race at that point. And I had to stop myself because I started to cry because I was like, I'm doing it.
Oh, I love that.
That was special. I'm like, no, it is way too early to get worked up. You are not even halfway through the first mile. Move.
Still, I love that you allowed yourself to be present into it. Okay, go ahead.
So that was fun. And then I was so cold right there at the beginning because as soon as we turned, the wind was at me, and then Let It Go came on. Because I had this random playlist of songs I just really like and are fun. So I'm singing along to Cold Never Bothered Me Anyway. And I'm just keep going. It's fine. You can be cold. You'll warm up eventually. But it was the first mile or so was actually a little rough because my shins were screaming at me. I had to stop and stretch out for a minute in that first mile. And I was like, this needs to not happen for 12 more miles. And it didn't. It stopped after about mile. When I got to around mile 2, it stopped. It was just probably a warming up situation.
It was lack of warm up. Again, that race day parking. Oh goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have some takeaways for the next time.
Yeah. And by mile 3, I was feeling pretty good. Mile 5, I felt like I was on fire. I was the queen of the race. Mile 5 was, I think, when I got that high that everybody talks about. I got it right there. And I'm like, yes, this is my race. I've got it. And then I see at this point, I've seen the pacers in front of me, but I decide I think I can catch it. I think I can catch the 3-hour pace group. Because I'd seen them come past me when I'd stopped and stretched in that first mile. And I was like, oh, well, there goes that. Because, a whole minute of just stopped time stretching. There's just no way.
Right.
But yeah, so I see it and I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to catch those people. And that was my goal until I did it, or close to, I don't know, mile 9, mile 10. Uh-huh. I think I yelled because Christine and Lynn and my wife were chasing me around the course in their car. And I think I yelled at her at one of the before mile that I got up to them and got to the group. So.
We were strategically choosing locations where we could cheer you on. So we got to use our car for sure, but it was exciting to get to see you because you again had a kind of an eye of the tiger focus. So you always had a smile on your face. There was always joy in your heart for what it looked like outside looking in, but also you were super focused. So I did appreciate seeing you in action. I love that you kind of already told us that like Let It Go came on at the perfect time. Tell us maybe how you felt about your run walk intervals throughout, because I think that that's a big takeaway. We sometimes will start with, I see athletes start with run walk intervals that are very aggressive. And that means that usually they start to skip their runs because they have to pull it back, where you knew what worked for you from your training. We went into it with that. And I don't think you skipped not one interval.
I only skipped one, but it was at a water stop. And I tried I tried to walk through the water stops that I was taking water in.
Right.
So I think, that was the only time I think I skipped one. And I was like, nope, we're skipping it. It's fine. Because I was running pretty strong at that point, and I felt like I was still moving and grooving and going where I needed to. But I am so glad I stuck to those intervals because I'm used to them. I know what it feels like. I know how long they are. I can push myself through. It has gotten to the point now where I can pretty much identify 30 seconds without someone telling me.
Yeah.
Because I just know it. So I'm like, I know when the beep is coming. Just keep pushing till the beep comes. Oh, you're about to run again. Go until the beep comes. So I stuck with it the whole way because I knew I could do it if I did it the way I trained.
Yeah. And you did. It was beautiful. Okay. Let's see. Any race day surprises that stick out to you? Like things that maybe you feel like, again, you're not a stranger to the start line and race day courses, but anything specific that stood out to you from this race?
Because it was longer than any race I'd done, there was so many more spots where people could just like cheer, and just random groups of people and people from neighborhood and just fun stuff like that. So I knew there were like some random crowd cheering spots because I'd looked at the course map and all the things because that's what I do. But there were so many more that I felt like I didn't feel like I didn't feel like it took as long as it did. I felt like the miles were just going quicker than they even did when I was, even in the group run and training. Like I felt like I lost time from mile 5 to mile 10. Like it was just constant fun and people and stuff.
We did too. You had us hustling, girl. I'm like, I don't know that we're going to make it to the next stop. Like we're trying to figure out, can we make it there? She's moving at such a pretty strong clip here, which is exciting. And again, I think I said, you don't worry about finding me, we'll find you. But still, you had us working to keep up. Okay. When did you realize I'm absolutely going to make it to the finish line? Or did you know that the minute you walked up to the start line? Or is there any point that really it hit you when you were running?
Well, I knew starting, no matter what, I was finishing this, even if it meant I was walking the back half of it or whatever happened, I was going to be finishing this race. Because I'd been training too long to not do it. I'm doing it. But I knew I was going to finish it strong. Probably mile 5 when I said that I was like, I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling good. I knew that I can finish this. No problem.
Okay.
Like, this is happening.
That's exciting that you knew it already at mile 5 for the record.
I felt like I hit I feel like it takes me a while sometimes to like find my stride and like, which is kind of annoying when I do a 5K because it's around mile 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, it's
like great. Now that I have 0.11 left. Yeah.
Which is why I'll think I'll never have a fast 5K because I just can't get going until it's too late. But yeah, so at like mile 3 when I was like, I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling good. But something about mile 5, I was like, I have more than half left, but I'm not scared of it. Like there's no fear. I've got it. No problem.
That's awesome. Super, super awesome. Tell us about how you feel crossing that finish line.
I was completely overwhelmed. I was stunned because I did it in under 3 hours. I still can't believe that. I had 40 seconds of cushion, but I did it. And I didn't think it was possible. So the moment I crossed and I had and I had crossed it before 3 hours. I was completely out of it, totally stunned. I almost missed picking up my medal because I was just staring off into nothing. I'm so overwhelmed. I definitely missed other things. I think there was a banana somewhere that I didn't see.
There were some surprises for you that you were like, you were focused on the accomplishment.
I was stunned and overwhelmed. And it wasn't until that I saw you guys and my wife and y'all being like, oh, great, that it hit me and I started crying. So it was amazing.
Congratulations. It was beautiful to watch. It was also beautiful to hear because we had Carissa Galloway, the Run Disney announcer, was there. And she spent quite a bit of time talking about how fabulous you looked. So it made me giggle. Like as you were going through the finish line, we got to hear about your sparkle skirt. We got to hear about all the different colors. So you definitely made quite the impression on that finish line. I did not realize
she was the announcer. I just thought it was some random person. So now I feel super special because she's seen so many races and she's still like,
I know. And she's seen Run Disney races, my friend, and she still was impressed. Yeah. So I think we have video of that because I was like, whoa, she spent a lot of time talking about how fabulous you looked. You did. And you looked strong. You looked happy. It looked really, really like someone who had put in the work, put that training through. So before we talk about what's next, I want to ask, do you feel like this process changed you?
Oh, yes. A lot. I have
in what ways?
So much more confidence, not even just like running, but like in life. Because I feel like what's funny is I've listened to other like interviews and like read stuff and where people are like, oh, you should be able to put that you've done some sort of endurance running down on your resume because it means something, and it totally does. Like I finished that and it was like, yeah, I feel like somebody should recognize that a marathon or a half marathon or these long races like take so much work to get to and then finish and be proud of the finish that you should have confidence in that. Like that was a lot of work. And it wasn't just because I got out there and actually did the running. It's that I scheduled the time to do it. And I prioritized, life in different ways and had to make decisions about, how I was going to make sure I was as strong as I could be, but also honor family and other commitments that I have. And it's a lot of work, more than just out on the pavement. So I recognize that. And I just have so much more confidence now.
I think that's I want to even touch on that a little bit more. We do live in a very instant gratification society. And I mean, it's modern conveniences at its best. So I'm not complaining, my friends. I too want to be able to watch whatever I want to watch on demand. But I do believe that that's where running or any specific endurance event you're in it for the long game, right? Like you have to be gritty to be able to get through it and to figure out how to really prioritize your life. So I want to say congratulations. It was beautiful to be a small part of it and to see it because you really did do such a fantastic job. I want to ask you, what's next?
Well, I've already committed to the Princess Challenge in February, the 10K and then the half back to back, and the challenge for Springtime Surprise because I'm insane and I just wanted to do that in the middle of April in Florida, which is not going to be cool like it might be in February. So that's the 5K, 10K, and then 10 miler, days back to back. So that's definitely happening. I've already committed to those, but I'm also excited about the other opportunity that you kind of introduced to. I've never heard of a Ragnar relay, but it sounds awful and amazing and insane. And I just really want to do it. So that's hopefully what's next.
That's the most beautiful description of Ragnar relay. It is awful and beautiful and fun. I mean, the most fun I've ever had and also the worst I've ever felt. The smell, it's truly the smelliest I have ever been in my entire life. But still, it is a lot of fun. So I think that kind of encapsulates running and training all in itself. So I love to hear this. I want to wish you the absolute best. I know that we'll have you back on because I want to keep hearing and learning more about this. I'm going to ask you before we officially call it, what would you say to somebody, or actually, what would you say to Shelly a year ago?
I would tell Shelly not to be so scared and worried about going to the doctor. I was so absolutely nervous that I was just a total wreck going into that. And I wish I'd used my energy in other ways because it turned out so good for me. So I would tell Shelly to just trust that you know people who know good doctors.
Love it. Love it. Okay. With that said, thank you so much for joining us again, Shelly.
Of course.
What an incredible conversation. Shelly, thank you for reminding us that the extraordinary is not about perfection. It's about showing up, embracing the journey, and celebrating every single step forward. And as we close out this episode, I want to talk to you, friend. Yes, you, the dreamer, the doer, and the runner that is ready to rise. What is your audacious goal for 2025? What challenge is waiting for you to lace up and chase it? If you're ready to rise to challenge, literally, I invite you to join the Extraordinary League in our brand new Rise to the Challenge series, 4 transformative months that are designed to help you build strength, resilience, and the confidence to tackle your biggest goals yet. This program is your chance to turn those wild, audacious dreams into reality. And as a podcast listener, you can save $25 with the code EXTRAPOD2025 when you sign up before December 31st. Visit the link in episode notes for more information or to reserve your spot today. Now, 2025 is your year to define what's possible. Don't wait. Your extraordinary story starts now. Until next time, keep running boldly, dream wildly, and stride toward your extraordinary. I'm Coach Christine, and I can't wait to see where your journey takes you. Thanks for joining. See you at the next run.